Start, everyone. A very good morning to everybody for HELIG Academic Libraries Readiness for Campus Phased Reopening webinar. The chairperson of LIASA HELIG, a very warm welcome, colleagues. I really appreciate your time and effort to join the conversation on academic libraries preparedness under the COVID-19 spell, which has affected us all, and how best we can find ways to sustain ourselves, offer our support for services to save the academic year 2020 in our institutions. I wish to emphasize that this webinar was planned with the intention to share knowledge and experiences of academic libraries' readiness for reopening, and the webinar objectives were outlined, but it's to address the issues that need to be dealt with for how academic libraries can build their COVID-19 risk management and business continuity plans, and more importantly, to build librarian confidence in managing library readiness for operations and enhancing our value during this pandemic. So LIASA has pledged her support for the President's call in combating the spread of COVID-19, the coronavirus, and ensuring that South Africa is a safe place to live and learn. Save the academic year 2020 and the higher education pledge of leave no student behind in teaching, learning, and research have enabled strategies to be put in place across all institutions to offer a full library digital service with accessible online collections and services, which our speakers are glad to share with you today. So I also want to say, from the start of lockdown on the 15th of March to present lockdown 2, librarians had to work from home in most cases without even being prepared for virtual service offering, including online meetings via Zoom, Skype, Teams, and now we learn all the new different modes of online meetings. And this has brought about a new normal, which we all have to embrace as a change management. So learning and developing as we encounter COVID-19 crisis, work from home scenarios with various work challenges, including access to laptop and data, reopening libraries with campus integrated phased-in plans were effected with operations conducted in compliance to COVID-19 health and safety protocols. Now, as we embrace campus phasing in, 66% of students, librarians have to review their online and physical presence of services in support of students and learning in their institutions. Also true during this pandemic is the enhanced services of academic librarians to align and embed the library services into the learning platforms, the student experience and research platforms on the campuses. So COVID-19 also produced innovative thinking of the value and the role of the library, and this is what we are challenging and we are embracing in our discussions this morning. I would also invite you to look at the CHELSA survey it's posted on the CHELSA webpage, which also looked at services academic libraries we're postulating in the COVID-19 lockdown period. So I have great pleasure in presenting our speakers for this session, who will share the institutional experiences in the following order. It's Larshan and Gareth Dampies first. And Larshan is the head of user services and support at the Rhodes University, and Gareth also works in Rhodes University. And up on the slide, I made it a little bit easier to save time as I put in all their credentials or the little bios. And Anwa Adriaanse is also the second speaker, the third speaker, who is the Deputy Director for Resources Systems at the University of the Western Cape. By the way, I'm Shirlene, and I'm the director of the University of the Western Cape, so everybody kind of knows me, right? And then we have Linda Mbonambi, who's the manager at the WITS Library and Information Literacy Librarian, and she's also going to share with us her experiences around COVID-19 and the strategies that WITS are using. And then finally, we would look at Theresa, who's the secretary for HELIG, will give us a summary at the end. So I want to also plead with all the colleagues to please switch their mics on mute and to please populate the chat session. I think you know there's a little icon at the bottom of the screen under chats. So you can populate your questions or your queries or any comments so that we can keep ourselves engaged with you at the same time while we have our presenters presenting. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Larshan and Gareth Dampies as the first colleagues for their presentation. So over to you, Larshan. Colleagues, enjoy, and I'm sure you'll find lots of interesting things that even you can relate to. Oh, by the way, I also want to thank Anna-Marie, who's on the session, for facilitating, coordinating all of our efforts into this LIASA webinar. Thank you, Anna-Marie.
Always a pleasure.
Larshan, are you ready to go?
Thank you, Shirlene. Good morning to you, colleagues. We have 10 minutes to do our presentation, so I'm going to go a bit fast. Go back to the first page here. So please bear with us, but all the content is on the presentations, which you can look at after the webinar and get back to us. We have our emails at the end of the presentation. So I think it's important that we try and cover as much as we can. As the pandemic has started in mid-March and the lockdown levels have started towards the end of March, I think all libraries were in a state of shock, in a state of disarray as to how we're going to take this forward. Academic libraries have bear the brunt of it much more than public libraries, I would think, because this was students that were involved, academics that were involved, and I think that has created a bit of a turmoil within academic libraries. But nevertheless, academic libraries were proactive in that way. From a global perspective, we've been looking at how IFLA has been handling this, how the American Library Association has been handling this, and the European libraries, how they have been working with the pandemic. And in a way, it was a learning curve for us. So from a global perspective, we've found that libraries had to put in work plans, which were implemented extremely well, implementing remote services with digital services, which was extremely good in that way, because I think from an perspective, we were on board in most instances. In terms of virtual assistants, most libraries, even in the country, had virtual assistants happening at the start of lockdown, and that was being extremely proactive. And limited library services, all the services that we had, we made announcements that it was limited, and I think our clientele were quite fine with that. Going forward, we had online library workshops, Zoom, Google. Faculty librarians have been doing online library workshops via Zoom and Google Hangouts, etc., and that has worked extremely well. In terms of remote working, it's the new normal and staff have adjusted to it. We have, in some instances, we've had a laptop rollout where we've handed out laptops and PCs to our staff so that they could take it home and work from home. The circulation of library materials was limited as well, but I will speak to it further. The issue that was a major issue at Rhodes was copyright. The area of copyright has become a contentious issue in the country and the world over. And where does it reside? With the library? Does it reside with the research office? And it has become a whole new way of thinking. All libraries in the world have used a hybrid working model. They've used an on-site working model and a remote working model. Actually, we use a multimodal way of doing things. In terms of the role of library management in this pandemic, I think, as I mentioned before, having robust library work plans is one of the most important things. The library management has to be sure and confident in handling these things. So the library work plan is fluid and is ever changing. As it goes on, the library management needs to meet and talk to the library work plan as we go on. Every week is a different scenario. As I said, you'll have to be agile and responsive to user needs. This is where library management has to be proactive in taking the fore in the way we handle a situation. As Blade Nzimande on Wednesday, the Minister of Higher Education spoke on Wednesday, and he's changed the plans of academic institutions. So we have to respond to that and work as fast as possible to amend our work plans so that we incorporate the new plan of action. The other thing is staff well-being. I think we overlook that. I think working from home and remotely has had a huge impact on staff and how they're handling their well-being in terms of they've lost family members, they've lost friends in this process of COVID, and how are we handling this from a staff well-being perspective. At the Rhodes University, we have a counseling center that's open every day where people can make an appointment and meet with the staff wellbeing center. I think that's a very important thing. I think we tend to look at online working as something that is very easy, but it's something that we overlook the staff well-being in the process. People are struggling. People are working home. Some people are working at home alone, and they have problems in terms of functioning from home. In terms of communication, there has to be constant communication with staff at all levels so that they are informed of what is happening in the university. Adhering to university protocols, I think we have to work in line with what the university is handling at the moment. Okay, so always be aware of what is going on. Having regular online meetings with staff so that they are apprised of what is going on. In terms of repurposing of budgets for additional e-resources, I think all libraries have been faced a situation where we have to purchase e-books. Looking at purchasing e-books has been a huge thing at Rhodes Library, where we were looking at how we could source the best e-books from all the faculties. Consultation and collaboration with the stakeholders of the university. I think that's an important thing. The library management has to be always in touch with the university management, with the faculties and the departments, with student affairs, SRC, and the campus protection unit. I think that's an important thing because it helps with knowing what is going on in the university. And the role of the librarian in support of online teaching and learning. I think this is one of the most important areas. It's changed the way we are doing things. It's marketing of the library's e-resources and the repository. It's become an important thing how we market. Faculties have to market the faculty librarians have to market their areas of excellence in a way that it's accessible to all. In terms of consultation, the use of Ask Us, the use of email, the use of WhatsApp is an important thing. Online navigation assistance. I think it has become one of the most important things. Students were grappling on how to use the website as a gateway, and that has been a problem where we have had numerous queries. Embedding library materials on the learning management system, I think that the faculty librarians have done an extremely good job in embedding the library or the library resources onto the learning management system. Online information literacy, that's been done where we have online workshops, Zoom meetings, and that kind of thing. And the LibGuides are an important thing. At the start of lockdown, we ensured that all the LibGuides are updated and all stuff are added onto our LibGuide so that students would have access to all the LibGuides easily. Attending webinars, I think it's important that whilst we were on lockdown, most staff were attending webinars so that you learn the best practices from other institutions. And vendor liaison, and the ERM librarian's job has changed dramatically over the past few months. They've been liaising with the vendors constantly. Your web presence is extremely important because the web is the gateway to the library at this point in time. So your website had to be relooked, reviewed, and re-envisioned. The effective use of social media. I think this is important where students access social media constantly. So your social media presence has to be there. As I mentioned before, online workshops and presentations to students and the faculty. And the other thing that we've done is converting all the presentations that we have on site into videos or PowerPoint with voiceovers. So I think that's an important thing. We try now be in the process of converting all our workshops, presentations that we've done in the library itself. Now we've converted into presentation to videos. Research support has been very good, where we have our scholarly communications librarian that is liaising with the academic staff and the academics in the university, and the postgraduates and PhD and things like that. Sourcing of ebooks, I mentioned that as well. The area of copyright has been a huge issue, Delro issues. I think every library is facing that at this moment, and I think we are handling it as we go on. The other area to speak to is scanning and the digitization. Digitization has been a whole new thing where we've reviewed our policy and procedures of how we digitize and scan our items for the users. In terms of the virtual services, the Rhodes Library has put this online where we have the librarians on call with virtual hours, 8:30 to 5, where you can speak to a librarian. If you have any query in the faculty, with its circulation or scholarly communication, we have librarians on call, so their work numbers are forwarded to this mobile phones, so you can call them between 8:30 and 5. We have support for all users of the library. So we've been functioning on virtual hours, and it's worked extremely well. In terms of continued assistance and support of the Rhodes Library, we've had links, hyperlinks, where students could look at ways of finding their way in terms of subject guides, in finding e-resources, to log into the library website, that kind of thing. I think it's been important, and the hyperlinks were sent on all the listservs, social media, and the website. In terms of phase reopening, our circulation desk, we open for twice a week for 2 hours to all eligible staff and students. Only 2 staff members work at a time on a roster basis. Our users mail their requests a day in advance and collect on the stipulated opening times, a pickup service. So this is working extremely well, and it's working well within our university. And browsing is not limited. We will fetch books for our users. All return items are placed in a book drop and not handled by the staff until the items are in quarantine. I think that's important, but my other colleague will speak to it as well further. Our short loan items are extended for a week. So this is not well, I have to say here, the size of Rhodes University is smaller than other universities, so we can make amendments to our plans. The opening hours may increase as the demand and more students come back to the university. All lockdown protocols are observed. In terms of phased reopening, our 24/7 study space has been opened, and we open from Monday to Friday between 8:30 and 5 for all eligible students under strict lockdown protocols. And my colleague will speak to that further. The postgraduate commons, well, the postgraduates have returned to campus, so we will be opening that probably on the 1st of September as well. The branch libraries, the law library will be open once a week for consultations and circulation of materials as well. In terms of the challenges we face, staff, students are not adhering to the lockdown protocols. That has been a challenge for us, and I think we're working on it. And as I say, these things are happening all the time. It's about re-envisioning, reviewing things as we go on. Timely response to online queries by email and stuff. Some people are, I mean, some of the students are sending us their email queries, and staff are having problems with data. Therefore, they cannot actually respond to them timelessly. So that has been one of the challenges that we had. In terms of copyright issues, I had mentioned that with Delro issues, we've had major issues with that, but we've worked a way around it, and we are trying to work with the research office and with the academics in working a way around it. Managing the use of the labs, in terms of computer labs, that has become an issue because most students want to use the computer labs, but in terms of sanitizing the machines and that kind of thing, and social distancing, it's become a bit of a problem, but we are looking at ways of working around it. But we've demarcated spaces where people can use the computers, and we have sanitizers available, but my other colleague will speak about that. The other issues is staff uncertainties in coming back to work. I think that all over the world, most staff are worried about coming back in terms of infection, in terms of their families' safety, and I think that is a concern. Accountability of remote work. I think, how do you measure what work is being done at home and remotely? I think that is a bit of a problem, but that you'll have to work with stats, work with all your reports that you get from your librarians and your team. The issue of data provision. Well, the university has been giving us data, but even that is a bit of a challenge now, because how do we sustain it going in long term? Students having difficulty accessing the virtual library. As I said, the website has to be dynamic so that students have ease of access in terms of accessing the library. The other issue is staff with existing health conditions and other risk factors. I think that's an important thing as well. An aging staff population and staff that have ailments, how do you bring them back to work? How do they work at home, remotely? I think those are the challenges, some of the challenges we have. I know I've been extremely quick on my presentation, but thank you so much for this. I'm going to hand you over to the next speaker now. Back to my colleague. Yes.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm Gareth, and thanks again for taking the time to join this session. I hope you will enjoy it and that we can all learn together. Allow me to just share some of the things that obviously we have implemented here at RUL. At Rhodes Library, with regards to integrating staff and obviously students back into the system again. Having said that, we now find ourselves on level 2 of the lockdown, and that in itself poses new challenges, in that more staff and students will be allowed back onto our campuses, and that's obviously how we're going to deal with that going forward. The pandemic has certainly forced us, there was how we adopt, the ways of working going forward. it is important to understand that the workplaces are some of the workplaces are relatively easy to control as far as hygiene and safety is concerned, and others less so. So that is something that we need to take into consideration in our own campuses. Our HR department has put together a comprehensive set of protocols that obviously changes as the lockdown regulations are eased, and we move to to lower levels. What is very important, and that is what I found in having to deal with this situation, is that failure to properly prepare the workplace and student areas can have disastrous consequences, and I think we can all take that as a given. Having said that, I'm wanting to just touch on what we've done, in getting ready. Obviously, one of the first things that I wanting to look at is our staff work areas. At the library at the moment, all our floors are completely shut down. No one is allowed on the floors without getting permission from me. What I've done initially is that we got in our cleaning, our central cleaning staff, and we've sanitized all the floors. And right thereafter, like I said, I closed all the floors. So at the moment, and this happened during level 3. What we've done, and Larshan earlier alluded to the fact that we have a pickup service. So our circulation staff, and only one at a time, was allowed to go onto the floors and obviously get the requested books. And obviously, as we move to now in level 2, obviously from the 1st of September, we're going to have to rethink that. But that happens in conjunction with Larshan and obviously our director as to how we go forward. What is important also is that we're not allowing all our staff back at the same time. I've had discussions with the head of technical services and Larshan being user services. They've set up a roster as to how we're going to bring those people back, and obviously times. Okay, now it makes it a little bit easier because we can allow 66% of our staff back. Our offices are not that big of a problem because with regards to social distancing, so there wasn't that wasn't a big challenge for me to have that sorted out. However, staff still need to be made aware of their responsibility, and therein lies that word compliance. Areas that is an issue for me at the moment is obviously our kitchens, where staff that very small, and as the staff come back, they will be. I will have a chat with them as to what is expected. Obviously, we won't have all the staff in the kitchens at all time. Those social discussions that we had previously, that no longer can happen. Toilets is important. How we sanitize, how we clean those toilets, and having said that, with the cleaning staff, and I'm going to touch on that in the next. So that roster is important because you don't want staff there and cleaning staff and your cleaning staff at library staff and cleaning staff at the same time. What is also very important is that I need to know who is in the building at all times. So when they came in. So should I have a problem, I can then go back to, and we have access control. So you need to come in and you need to badge. Before a door opens, you have to badge. That goes onto a system. So if anything happens, I can go back and I can, on a specific day, I can tell you how many people I have had in the building, but more importantly, who was in the building. So that is important as far as contact tracing is concerned. So just something that you need to just keep an eye on. As far as preparing, the staff, and Larshan touched on that, we have a staff well-being task team on campus, which should there be any issues with staff not being happy or whatever issues they have, they can obviously go there. Staff need to understand the risk and how to obviously mitigate the risk. It is important, you know, to know who, like I said, who enters the building when they enter. Also, as far as the areas where they are, the offices and where they're working, that those areas get cleaned and sanitized on a regular basis. How often completely depends on you, on how many people you bring back into a specific area, and obviously how these areas are. Because I'm pushed for time, I'm skipping through things, but I'm happy to take questions at the end. We had an incident not so long ago, about 2 months ago, where one of our cleaning staff were infected. That obviously sent jitters through this building, okay? Luckily for that person, she never came into the building leading up to her not feeling well, and obviously when she did the test. However, cleaning staff that was in the building had to go into self-isolation for an obvious period. What I then did is that I immediately identified the areas where these people could have been, and I brought an outside company in to just sanitize the area, obviously fogging it. Okay. On the book quarantine, initially, what we did there before we had the book box, which I'm going to just touch on later on, is that books came in, and books, no one were allowed to touch those books. We've got a book chute, and if a patient brings a book back, that book needs to go into the book chute, and they're not supposed to touch that. Those books were quarantined for a period of 72 hours. Larshan brought under my attention that he read an article that should that virus be on that book, that it could be there for about 4 hours. I can neither confirm nor deny that. He read the article. Just on the library spaces, Larshan touched on it. We've got the 24 section. So as the students were coming back, they just needed a place to come and sit where they can have Wi-Fi, work remotely, make use of our internet access, and just have a power plug. Larshan is talking about the postgraduate commons that we're looking at later on, and I've got some pictures that I'll show you just so that you can see what we've done there. Just as far as IT infrastructure and support is concerned, there was challenges there because I think as most of you that are online here today, you were never confronted with Zoom or having to put on a camera or a mic or having to put the camera off or putting the mic on. Before lockdown, we identified 9 staff that would be listed as our critical staff. But as we went on, we discovered that more staff need to come on board. I had shortage of laptops. Luckily, the university made made data available. So the remote support for staff became more evident from my office because as they were struggling, we needed to. But myself and my colleague in IT support, we were able to help in that regard and just allay all fears and just make it a comfortable journey. Web support, Larshan were talking about the virtual offerings. It was important that we give support there and make available. Obviously, any changes that needed to be there out there immediately with regards to the virtual services. That was critical, and we spent a lot of time on that. As far as the budget is concerned, and I always say that this time of the year, that's when we do our budgets. And last year, this time when we did our budgets, COVID-19 wasn't part of that script. With that in mind, we needed to, all of a sudden, we needed now to put up screens. We needed to procure PPEs. That was an issue. So because we didn't have the money for that. So what we did is we just with my maintenance budgets, I needed to and with discussions with my director and her approval, we just repurposed some of the money to be able to purchase these things. Procurement, obviously, in Grahamstown is always a problem. For those who know where Grahamstown is, it's always difficult to get anything here. When we opened, we obviously needed to get all these things ready, and we needed to get it ready like yesterday. but getting the stuff here, stock, and that was an issue that we obviously needed to overcome. Outside contractors in that, I being infrastructure as well, you know, I still needed to look after the building. We've got fire protection, we've got sprinkler systems and all that. So I needed to get outside contractors into this building, which was a challenge also because staff were anxious. You're now bringing people from outside. PE was at that stage a hotspot. East London was a hotspot, and I needed to bring people from there.
Yes.
You know, so you had to. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry, I give you 1 minute to round off.
Okay, sure. So there was a register in that regard. I'm just going to, so that's our loans area. That's how, that is the screens that we put up. There you find that we demarcated for the social distancing. You have to wear a mask when you come in. That is just a desk where actually outside where we're sitting at the moment. That's just the undergrad librarian where she will be sitting. That is how we did that. These are just some of the signage that we use, the sanitizing stations. There's an infrared scanner for when students come into the building. That is our 24/7 section, and as you can see there, a student comes in, he has to sanitize, he takes his temperature. We've got a dedicated guard there that looks after that. That's the inside of that 24/7, and as you can see, that's how the students sit, very important. That is the book box that I will hopefully touch on later. There's 2 small videos that we can have a look at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gareth.
You're welcome.
And I'm sorry to rush you.
No problem.
So, Anna-Marie, can we share Anwa Adriaanse's screen presentation, sorry. Mr. Adriaanse, it's up to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My presentation will highlight some of the, let's take 2. Good morning, everybody. My presentation will highlight some of the UWC preparations for opening under COVID-19 conditions. If we could move to the next screen, some of the items I will touch on will be, I'll speak about the phased-in approach, touch on the purpose and those points listed there, and then I will look at the service, the way we supported students and academic staff during this period. I'm going very quickly just for the sake of time. So next slide. So the purpose of the UWC Library opening strategy, well, it has many purposes, one of which was as a communication tool. And it was used to communicate to the university executive that the library's phased-in opening plan was in compliance, was in accordance with the university's broader plan. And at the same time, it communicated to staff exactly what we would be providing under each lockdown level, service level, and which staff would be required to be back on campus once we hit level 3. And so it was a communication tool and a planning tool. And underlying all of this, the primary considerations was the health and safety of students and of course our staff, and to support the completion of the academic year. The context is the same for everybody, COVID-19, and the phased-in plan obviously had to comply with the regulations and restrictions that were specified or defined under each of the lockdown levels. Next slide. So under lockdown levels 2, 3, and 2, these are some of the points I wanted to just highlight for you. These were also headings within our plan. So as I said, it was clearly spelled out. It was a guideline for our staff and for the rest of the university community. So obviously, once we were back on campus, library operating hours were restricted. Under level 3, we operated under what were essentially Vacation hours, the library opened at 20 past 8 and closed at 4:30. Under lockdown level 2, we extended this to 8 o'clock at night, although our study hall remained closed for both lockdown 3 and 2. The access to the university was restricted, obviously, under 3. Only 33% of students were permitted to be on campus. And we then restricted numbers of access to the library to 100. That increased to 300 under level 2. Although under neither of these levels did we reach anywhere near those targets for access to the library. The number of levels in the library under lockdown level 3 was very restricted. UWC has got a different layout. It has 14 levels, and we restricted access to most of these levels, only opening 5 under lockdown level 3. Under 2, we've actually opened all our levels with obvious regular patrols by security staff and so on. The Knowledge Commons was one of the areas that we opened. We disabled a large number of computers, both in the Knowledge Commons and in the rest of the library, and this was to reduce access to ensure social distancing. Under lockdown level 3, once we were back on campus, the returning and borrowing of books was again allowed, and all books that were returned were quarantined. They were also not physically handled by staff, but were dropped into boxes and were not immediately available to be borrowed again. For students to borrow items, they also did not have access to the shelves, so they had to request material from the circulation staff, who would then collect items from the shelves. And again, this was just to ensure that we keep contamination down as much as possible. All services were restricted to electronic format, both under 3 and 2, and printing and photocopier services as well, open under both lockdown levels. The acquisitions functions resumed on site under level 3, and this is an important point, and maybe I should just expand on this one. Under full lockdown, obviously, the purchasing of print material was not possible. You could not receive items, and therefore eventually you could not pay them. So we stopped the ordering of print items and concentrated on ordering electronic material. And this was also to ensure that students obviously could access these materials where print was not available. Then, I'm just closing a question that popped up. Sorry, just go back to that slide again, please. So the purchasing of print that was resumed when we were back on campus, this is an important point, because as we were concentrating on purchasing electronic material to facilitate access, the important point here is that a lot of prescribed and recommended material, which we have been buying in print and which were sitting in our short loan collection on campus, these items are not available, largely not available in electronic format, or definitely not available as standalone titles for purchasing. Prescribed and recommended material often only available as part of a package when in electronic format, making it very prohibitively expensive. So I will expand on this again when I speak about another point further on. But the reliance of our students on prescribed and recommended material is still very high. And the fact that it's not readily available in electronic format is problematic. Then cataloging and processing functions also resumed under lockdown level 3. Next slide, please, Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, thank you. I'll briefly touch on the impact on our staff. Right from the start, I think the communication from the university executive was exemplary. They kept students and staff informed all the way, and the library management followed suit using WhatsApp, email, Zoom meetings, etc. And this was all in an attempt to keep staff from feeling more isolated than what they were probably feeling. Just to keep in contact with them, to keep them grounded. They're still part of a team. And I think the support from university HR and the COVID task team at UWC was also excellent. There was a lot of support for staff well-being, and which continues now. Then under lockdown level 3, when 33% of students and staff were allowed back, the staff that we required to report back to campus first were the staff who were not able to perform functions from home. And this worked out well, since it was circulation services staff largely that were required back on campus to open the library. And under lockdown level 3, we identified our 33% staff members, and they were required to report to work every day. The rest of the staff continued to work from home where it was possible. Then under lockdown level 2, when 66% of staff were allowed back, we actually took a decision to roster all staff to return to campus. So every staff member was rostered to be back on campus for at least 3 days a week. And this was in an attempt to get staff orientated to coming back to campus. We have got an eye on hopefully the not too distant future, when we hit level 1 and everything, all the campus is fully open and all staff are to report back to campus. So we thought level 2 was a good opportunity to roster all staff back. It's a bit of a challenge to manage that roster, but it's not insurmountable. And while obviously staff still continue to work from home, and staff with chronic conditions are those over the age of 60. Whether they're able to work from home or not, they were allowed to remain at home. We also had a project to acquire laptops to enable staff to work remotely. We have staff complement of over 50, and quite a few of them were not able to be productive from home simply because allowance, Shirlene, I've got a remote control. Yes. Next slide, Anna-Marie. And these were some of the ways that we supported staff and students. Obviously, we had our website played a massive role, and we introduced a free resources page on there. I won't expand. Course reserves, online course reserves became very important. We scanned chapters and books within compliance of copyright, and facilitated access to material in that way. We introduced a mobile book service under level 3, where students could reserve a book online. We would issue it to them online, and they would be able to, by appointment, collect it at our main gate, so not physically actually enter the campus. Next slide, Anne-Marie. And then we intensified our online support. A lot of this was touched on in the previous presentation as well. Ask a Librarian chat. Often it would start as an online chat and then be continued via email. Frequently asked questions. That's still an important, useful, and live guides. These were regularly updated. Since we were buying a lot of ebooks, we also designed or published a list of ebooks. All hyperlinked, provided another point of access for students and staff. And the support of online support, teaching and learning, teaching and training online was really intensified, and maybe lockdown gave us a boost and a push towards performing that even more intensely, because obviously face-to-face was not possible. Then we published a lot of videos to support students, both undergraduate and postgraduate. These were produced in-house and then published on our YouTube channel. Some of these are listed on the next slide. So those are some of the videos that we recently produced. There's a number of other videos in production phase and which will be published soon on our YouTube channel as well. Since I'm pushed for time, I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Adriaanse. So then can I call upon Linda? Linda Mbonambi. Thank you. Linda, check your mic. It may be on mute.
Oh, it's unmute. Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. And I just want to say thank you from the organizers for offering the opportunity to share with you our experiences during the COVID-19. And without wasting time, I will just get to the next slide. With this one, I'm just trying to send out a message in terms of the challenges that we were faced with at the time regarding making decision, and at times we were not even sure whether this is the right decision, but the issue is that we believed that at the end of the day we'll be over the storm that we are faced with. So this is just a page for sending out a message. Coming to our plan for reopening, and even after we've started operating, we did look at the issues of policies and procedures, and we're adhering to the campus procedures, and which is coming from the government during the lockdown. And we also looked at the safety, and we put together some resources or information related to how this will be managed and what we need. And it's all about the sanitizers, the masks, the gloves, and other related items. In terms of space configuration, we received the tapes for marking the social distancing in various areas of the library to comply with the protocols. And some areas were closed completely, like the 24-hour reading area, and some chairs were removed and put in certain areas, and so on. In terms of service and collection, which was the major issue for us, the reserve collection, we couldn't issue it out during the time when the library was closed, but when the library was open, we just issued it to the students to use it in the library only, not to take it out. And in terms of the books that have been returned as well, there were drop box. A student can return books there, but those that were returned within the circulation desk, we put them on the 24 hours, which was quarantine. And again, in this area, we thought about the issue of how do we collect data in terms of now we're providing service differently, and we need to capture some data around that. In terms of the library staff, we had to think about the new schedule. How do we work the shifts, since we had to, some staff had to work 2 days, some staff have to work 3 days on campus, and so on. And as well, the issue of working remotely for the staff, we had to receive laptops with data, and some of the staff were not able to work at home because of some challenges with the laptop, which is applicable even to other universities as well. And we also had an app that was for the whole campus, where if you enter the gates, you had to be checked, and then you also enter some of the information within the app, which was available online for all the staff generally on campus. Right, with this area, I was just trying to say, our student had access to a wide range of online resources, as you can see here, via our library website. They were able to use our databases online. They were also they had access to LibGuides, the e-journals, and some videos, including the ebooks in some of the databases. And we also had a LibGuide, which was specifically designed to support them online with the changes. And we had Ask a Librarian, where students can ask questions, and we were behind the scene online available to answer all the queries that they have. And for postgraduate as well, they were able to access Figshare. Next slide is just a display on how the space was configured around the library. For an example, we had the area where, when the books have been returned, the ones that are on reserve, we put them on the quarantine, which is this is the area, and then it will be shelved the following day. And in this area, we were a bit worried that how safe are we as staff taking the book from the student, sanitizing your hands and then putting it back to the quarantine, and then the staff that is taking over the following day understand that this is our quarantine area, and will take the books back to the shelves. And then we have our circulation desk with yellow marks here to comply with distancing. And unfortunately, we're running out of time, but when you have time, you can click here. It's showing social distancing, although it's from another university, but it's the same perspective of what we've experienced, where the student comes in and has forgotten about social distancing, and you had to tell the student that wait there, and then you can talk and tell me what kind of assistance you need, all such challenges. And then we had the self-check-in machine here, which was quite nice because it's one person per time. And then we have our IT help desk, which was not functioning when the library was completely closed. But once we opened, the assistance was available virtually and on campus, but with limited staff from IT to assist. This is just showing you how some of the working areas we've put in the signs, the tapes in yellow, to show that the user should not sit here, and one user only can sit and use the table, and so on. Right, here I was just trying to indicate how technology has played a major role in supporting students virtually in all the activities that we're doing. For an example, we were able to use Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Skype, but Zoom and Teams were the most popular. As well, for postgraduate, this has been the most popular tools that we have been using for postgraduate students because they are mostly on campus. So with these tools, we're able to do individual consultation, one-on-one, to do group workshops, and we'll send the recordings back to the students, and we discover that students, they appreciate this a lot when we send the video. And in our consultation as well, the technology has allowed us to share documents online, and we can add polls. And with Zoom and Teams, we were able to group the students and manage the conversation online, because these two tools, which is Microsoft Teams and Zoom, you are able to do that as well. And even the instant messaging, because with these tools, Microsoft and Teams, you are able to send a message immediately and you get a response instead of the email. So that was very useful during the period of COVID. In terms of our information literacy, as we approach it together with the Learning Skills Advisor, technology as well also helped us to deliver these skills to students, assist them with the assignments online, which was quite very nice. With that, I think we did very well, except that technology at times is not working, there is load shedding and so on. This is just to indicate the traffic online. I've just used our LibGuides to show the statistics in terms of it went up so quickly because students were using a lot of our LibGuides. For an example, this one, it's all about the writing, the guides in terms of how to write introduction, the citing and referencing and so on, which is available here. And the COVID LibGuide, which was also heavily used, where we've put in information to connect with the students online. Some challenges around the COVID when we were running the library, we realized that most of the literature is available in physical format, and that is the biggest drawback for the libraries in the pandemic situation. As well, sorry, it's running fast. As well, we thought effective policy making for handling the intellectual property rights during digitization was one of our challenges, because sometimes you find that there is more copies needed at the point in time, and unfortunately, because of the intellectual property rights, we couldn't make more copies to cater for the needs of the student in certain areas. We also realized that, circulating books through humans can increase the spread of the infection. As well, managing social distancing throughout the library users, that was the main challenge for librarians, including licensing which required flexibility regarding the number of users. That refers to the ebooks online, especially because at times you find that we subscribe to the license where it's 3 users per time. And at that point in time, the request is for the whole class for that item. So it's one of the challenges that we picked up. And so what are the possible solutions? So we thought libraries should have emerging savings to cater for similar circumstances like the one that we are faced with. And we also thought libraries, with the help of authors and publishers, can start rental-based services for library users and can provide e-format of books till the end of pandemic or even beyond that. And the other item is, we thought libraries need to adjust to plan for short and long-term policies in their different scenarios and integrate that within the plan of the library. And lastly, I just want to say to you, I thank you.
Thank you, Linda. That was insightful. Can I ask Theresa Mofana? Theresa, she will do a short summing up. Is she on?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me, Ashley?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, colleagues, and to the organizers of this wonderful seminar. Very relevant, especially during these uncertain times. Just to sum up on what our speakers shared with us this morning, I think you can all agree that it's no longer business as usual. And as librarians, we need to adapt to this emerging situation, especially to our 2 user groups. Now you see that we are coming back to the campuses, but it's not like all of our user groups will be coming back to the campus. So we should always remember that we respond to both our on-campus as well as those that are still studying and working remotely. Over and above that, the way we work and provide services has changed and is not gonna come back to pre-lockdown for a long time, even way after the situation has changed. I think we have learned that we are no longer going to rely mostly on our print resources and services. This is now time for digital. We have realized from what our speakers shared with us this morning that having print collections was a bit of a challenge because we had to swiftly close the libraries and move everything online. Adaptability is also key here, and I must say we can all be proud of ourselves that we had, or our parent institutions had to change things immediately, and we just had to adapt to providing our e-services, to providing our library services online, you know, and use all these various information and technology tools that we have now become experts in, okay? Another thing is that we need to continue being present to our users. We need to be where they are. We need to be embedded. So the role of an embedded librarian is more important than ever before, because if we don't heed to that call, then that means we are no longer going to be relevant. So we are also aware of the challenges that have been highlighted, the copyright, the sourcing of ebooks, working from home, you know, the challenges that some of us experienced. But to end it all is just to say we need to keep aligned with the hygiene protocols that the pandemic is forcing us to follow. We need to keep ourselves and those that we serve healthy and protected. And our parent institutions have also provided some support structures. At the IIE, we have a service, you know, for mental health and general wellness. So please, colleagues, let's take advantage of those so that we take care of ourselves, so that we are able to provide the much needed support to our students and lecturers and our institutions at large. And just on just to thank you all that have made time to come today, and all those, I know that there are many of us, but we couldn't all come. Thank you very much for showing interest and for showing up. And also to our organizers, Shirlene, Larshan, and all the HELIG Exco group and all the members. Thank you so much for all this that you are affording to us. More than ever before, we need this kind of discussions so that we stay up to date with the latest trends, so that we can always, you know, keep doing our best as we service our institutions. I also want to thank Anne-Marie for, you know, handling this and for having made this possible for us to congregate. Without her help, we wouldn't have been able to have this successful webinar. And last but not least, to my IIE leadership for all the resources and support that I'm able to do or serve my LIASA and all of you colleagues. Last but not least, to our wonderful speakers, sorry. How can I forget you? Larshan, Gareth, Anwa, Linda, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And to all of you here, thank you so much and all the best going forward. Thank you, Shirlene.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. I think that brings the webinar to a conclusion. I did notice there were some chats, and maybe we can respond to people via the chats personally, as we don't have very much time for the questions answers, unless people want to stay over and take questions. I unfortunately have to leave, but I want to really, really thank all the colleagues that have been on the webinar for your time, your effort, and the interest. I think there is going to be a series of webinars from now on from HELIG. The next webinar planned is the CHELSA COVID-19 library, academic library strategies. And there will be a few others. I know Ingrid is also planning one. So there's going to be a few others. And I ask you to please make sure that you are still a LIASA member and that you join us. And we're also very willing and open to people who want to do further webinars on HELIG's group. With that, librarians and colleagues, please stay well, stay good, and please take care of yourself. Remember, it is up to you to make sure that you look after yourself well during this time. Thank you, everyone.
Shirlene, I'm sorry, Shirlene.
Yes?
Shirlene, we have a short video that we'd like to show the group.
Okay.
On the book box.
Okay, so can we, I think, Larshan, you can go ahead and screen the video. I unfortunately have to leave, but I'm sure colleagues would be interested. So you can go ahead and show the video, and I think it is any questions or chats, you can take it over, all right?
Okay, Anna-Marie, can you please screen that video for us?
Thank you, Shirlene.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
No?
She's not.
And I want to, just a short video, just to showcase the UVC germicidal light, which forms part of the book box, and I will explain that to you just now. It actually serves as a dual purpose because you can also use this light to clean the surface. This would be the surface where you will have a staff member sitting. This is our lounge area, and before the staff member comes and starts working, he or she can actually use this light to just disinfect this area. And basically how it uses is actually straightforward. It's got an on and off switch. The light, however, is quite sharp. So with this, you also get a set of goggles like what I've got here, which I will put on just to showcase during my demonstration. And how one does this is that you keep the light for about 15 distance from about 15 centimeters from the work area, and you basically just move it across. And as you move it across, it will clear all bacteria or viruses that should be on or will be on the surface. It has actually got quite a sharp smell, and so you can smell during the process. I'm going to switch on, and you can see the light going on there. And on that distance, all I do is I just move it across, and by doing so, it should kill all germs and bacteria. And just to be safe, I move it back again very slowly. That's it. Thank you. Now we move over to the ultraviolet disinfection unit, commonly known as the book box. As you can see, it's quite light and movable. It comes with its own set of wheels. It has handles on the side, not that heavy to carry. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how we disinfect the books, and it's advisable that we use some latex gloves. So I'm just going to put the books in. It generally takes about 10 to 15 books, depending on the size of the books, and quite straightforward. So all you need to do is just you place the books into the box. These books would generally be dropped off in our book chute. No staff member is allowed to touch these books, obviously without using gloves. So we put these books into the unit, and as you can see, I've got a rather thick book here, which you can also quite comfortably put in there. And like I said initially, you can put in about 10 to 15 books. And all that needs to happen now is that I close the book. I have marked out on the top of the lid where I need to just place the light so that it spreads evenly. So I put it on, I switch it on. And obviously during this process, you will also have to wear your goggles. Like I said in the earlier video, it's quite a sharp light. And I leave this for about 3 minutes. And thereafter, you can remove the books and it should be clear of all viruses, bacteria, and so forth. And like I said earlier, you can actually get the smell of how, you know, like a burn smell of how this bacteria is being, shall I use a word, killed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose, for that interesting video. I think that's it now. If we don't have any more questions, I'm just watching the chat. Oh, somebody asked for the cost of equipment, Rose, Larshan and Gareth.
Hi, not to sound as a salesperson, I would advise colleagues to just make contact with the people at UKS. They would be able to provide that information. I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to discuss that, so please forgive me.
Understandable, thank you. And Anna-Marie, are you able to do the poll now?
I'll just get it in sure.
Theresa, unfortunately not.
Okay.
We will send the poll questions perhaps when we send the video recording, and then people can just respond to that.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Thank you. So, colleagues, there will be an email about the poll.
Hi, good morning. I don't see the. Yes, my name is Mpune from UNISA.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yes. Sorry, I don't see the hand thingy on the thing. But my question, I'll put it on the chat. I've read somewhere that the book also needs to be disinfected. On the pages in the book also need to be disinfected just in case the student was going through chapter 1 or so. So I asked on the chat if does that machine ensure that the book is disinfected from page 1 up until the end. The way it demonstrated, it seems to disinfect the front and the back and then the sides of the book. But the student will actually be going to a particular page and touch the book. So that's my concern. But thank you.
Can I quickly just answer that question? I think it's Mdu. Good question, because I actually posed that question to the colleagues at UKS as well, because that was a concern to me. What if that virus sits on page 20? How does that get infected? Because when you put the book into the box, it is closed. They've actually ensured me that the virus or any bacteria in that book will be eliminated. That's the answer that I got from them very confidently.
Just to come in here, it's just, I must say, all these devices that we have, it's not a solution, but a precaution on our part as well.
Okay. Thank you, Larshan. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you so much, colleagues. I think we've come to the end now. And on that note, keep well and keep safe. Until next time.
Thank you. Thank you so
much.
Thank you.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.